we are going to continue looking at democratic principles and ideals. So yesterday you were able to look at the Bill of Rights, which are the first 10 rights that are guaranteed to you as a citizen of America. And we are going to continue looking at some of those rights today as we determine the main idea or what those rights mean, okay? We have a lesson coming to us from Mr. McKinney, and this lesson is a 2-day lesson. So you will notice on Seesaw that it says day 1, day 2. That means that we are going to stop at halfway through the assignment, and we will save our work and we will finish the rest tomorrow. Okay, so I do want you to be aware of that. What we are going to do is take a look at a text that comes to us from Mayan, but we have recorded everything that you need to know from that text on Mayan inside of your Seesaw assignment, because that text is pretty long and we just want you to be able to look at just the parts that we're focusing on, okay? You know that we are focusing on determining the main idea of a text, recounting the key details, and explaining how they support the main idea. So again, you will determine the main idea, recount, which means rename or state the key details, and today you're going to work on explaining how you know those details support the main idea. So what is your proof that they are connected? Here is a quick review video from Mr. McKinney about what main idea is.
The main idea of a story is like a table. You can't have the tabletop without the legs holding it up. In the same way, you cannot have a main idea of a story without supporting details. Feel free to choose one or more than one of these stories to review main idea.
So remember, when we think about main idea, it's the same as when we think about a table. Think about any times that you've sat at a table. What are you thinking about? You're thinking about the food that was on it. You're thinking about the coloring page that you did. You're thinking about the computer game that was sitting on top of the table. You're not thinking about, man, those legs were really supportive to me. That was awesome, okay? It's the same thing. When we read a text, our brain tends to remember the main idea. It remembers what it was mostly about, what was mostly happening. Then, if we take some time to go into detail or to be more specific, we might remember facts that supported that main idea. But your brain is going to remember mostly what a text is about. Then you'll realize, I was able to remember that because of all these interesting pieces of information as well. So it works the same way as a table, okay? We are going to take a look at this text. And as I shared with you, this text is on Mayan. You're more than welcome to read all of it during your time if you like. But we're just going to focus on certain parts today because this is a pretty long text. We are going to look at our values, which we know values are things that we believe in. We've learned about liberty, which means that there are freedoms to choose. We've learned about equality, which means we are all treated the same way in our opportunities that are given to us. We talked about our rights, which means things that are guaranteed to you, that you have the right to, that you should have access to. And then our civic duties. This one's new. Civic duties is a job that you have as a citizen to help keep these values protected for others around you. So what can you do to contribute to making this world better? Okay. Mr. McKinney is going to help us understand the main idea of this section of text. You are going to be listening to a section of text later on your own and doing exactly what Mr. McKinney is going to show. You're going to find the main idea and you're going to highlight supporting details. So this is an example that we're going to look at and talk about together. First, we need to understand our democratic values. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you, and we're going to listen to what the text says.
What is a democratic value? During election time, you may hear people talking about values. But what are values? A value is a belief that is based on what you think is right. For example, let's say someone values honesty. What does honesty mean to you? Imagine it's raining outside. You spend school recess running around and having fun. When you come back in, your shoes are covered in mud. You forget to wipe them on the mat and track brown mud all over your classroom. Your teacher says that the person who made the mess needs to help clean it up. You know it was you, but you don't want to clean the floor. What do? If you value honesty, you tell the truth about what you did. This value is important to you. If you do something wrong at school, be honest and tell your teacher.
Alrighty, so our values are going to be things that we believe are important. And democratic values are important because they help our country and our fellow citizens also have a more fair and equitable life. Okay, so now Mr. McKinney is going to talk about all this information that we heard, and it's going to look at the main idea of the passage and find the details or those supporting legs like the table that keep it up.
What is the main idea of this passage? Well, first, let's
Sorry, I don't see you guys right now, so I'm going to move you really quick so that I can see you. There we go, great.
look at the title. The title says, what is a democratic value? So I know the main idea has something to do with the democratic value. Let's look at the first sentence. During election time, you hear people talking about values. That doesn't really tell us too much. Let's look at the last sentence. This value is important to you. That doesn't really tell us a lot either, but it does tell us that values are important. So the main idea can be anywhere, and there can be more than one main idea. So let's look for repeated words. I see the word honesty, honesty, honest, and honesty. And from what I remember from reading this passage, I remember that it talks about how important it is to be honest. And it stated that honesty is a good value to have. So honesty must be a good democratic value. So in a complete sentence, I could write, the main idea of this passage talks about how honesty is a good democratic value. Or you could say it is an important democratic value. There are many ways you could write a main idea. But now we have to highlight a supporting detail. If the whole story is about how honesty is a good, important democratic value, a supporting detail has to have something to do with how honesty is an important democratic value. Let's look at this sentence. Imagine it's raining outside. Does that have anything to do with honesty being a good democratic value? No, it does not. So that's just a detail in the story. It's not a supporting detail. Let's look at this sentence. If you value honesty, you tell the truth about what you did. This value is important to you. I think this sentence talks about how honesty is an important democratic value. So this would be a good sentence to highlight for a supporting detail.
Okay. What questions are there about how we determined the main idea and those supporting details? So Mr. McKinney used a strategy of finding repeated words. Honesty was repeated a lot, and the title was democratic value. So when we put those together, we can see that honesty is a democratic value. Okay. The second thing that you're going to be asked to do today is to write a question about the passage. So you are going to come up with your own question and your own answer about the text that you read today. Here's an example of how Mr. McKinney thinks up a question.
For this assignment, I want you to try to think of a question on your own using any one of these words: who, what, when, where, why, how. So we need to look for any facts in the sentences, and then we just simply form a question out of it. You could almost look at any sentence and form a question out of it. For example, let's look at the first sentence. During election time, you may hear people talking about values. You could ask, what may you hear people talking about? Or you could ask, during what time may you hear people talking about values? You could look at this sentence down here where it says, your teacher says that the person who made the mess needs to clean it up. You could ask a who question, and you could ask, who says that the person who made the mess should clean it up? And the answer would be your teacher. Or you could ask, your teacher says that who should clean up their mess? And the answer would be the person who made the mess. So you can find any facts in the sentences in the paragraph and turn it into a simple question. Let's use the first one we talked about. The question was, what might you hear people talk about during election time? And the answer was values. Remember, when you're creating questions, you don't need to go find the answer. You already know the answer. You are the teacher creating the question.
Okay, so you're also going to create a question today for your text that you are going to read. So you have two jobs today. You are going to determine the main idea of a text and highlight the details, and you are going to write a question about information that you have in the text. I'd like for you now to go to your seesaw and click on activities. There is an activity there called Main Idea Democratic Values. Go ahead and click on the Add Response button of this section or of this assignment. When you add your response, you're going to notice that the first slide is the text. Your instructions tell you that you are going to listen to the text on slide 1. You are also going to determine the main idea of that text. This section we are going to work through together. Independently today, you will be finding the supporting details and you will be writing 2 questions about the text. Let's go ahead and listen to this text. And as I'm playing it, you can go ahead and follow along with your eyes on your screen so that you are actively reading as well. This is about the democratic value of liberty. And we have learned that liberty is the freedom to make choices. We're going to look at what the main idea of what the author says about liberty in this text. So please listen and be thinking, what is this mostly about?
Liberty. Liberty is an important democratic value. Liberty means freedom. In the United States, you have the freedom to believe what you want. You have the freedom to choose what religion to follow. You have the freedom to form your own ideas and opinions. People attended a protest in Washington, D.C. You are also free to share your ideas with others. You can write what you think in a blog. You can go to a protest and stand up against things you disagree with. Other people have these freedoms too. It's important to let people follow their own beliefs, even if they are different from yours. Protesters stood outside the White House in 2019.
All
The
right.
idea of liberty goes back to when this nation was founded. Before the United States was a country, it was a colony of Great Britain. American colonists wanted to separate from Great Britain. They wanted their own country. They didn't want to be ruled by a king. As a result, colonists fought against the British in the Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783. The colonists won. Early leaders wrote down values they wanted people in our society to follow. Our early leaders wrote down values they wanted in society. These democratic values are in important documents such as the U.S. Constitution.
Which you know is what we were looking at in our Bill of Rights to get this word liberty. Go ahead and go to slide 2. I want us to think about what is the main idea of this text. And we're going to do the same strategy that Mr. McKinney used, and we're going to look for repeated words. So go ahead and grab a highlighter, make it your favorite color. I noticed that our title is liberty. So my main idea should probably have the word liberty in it if it's in the title. In this first paragraph, I'm seeing liberty means freedom. I'm also seeing that you have freedom to believe in what you want. You have freedom to choose what religion to follow. You have freedom to form your own ideas and opinions. Make sure you are highlighting what we are highlighting. You are also free to share your ideas with others. Other people have these freedoms too. So I can see that the word freedom is inside of this text a lot as well, so that should probably be in my main idea. Let's get ready to type our main idea. The main idea is liberty is an important value So I've used liberty, and we know we're talking about values, but I still haven't used that word freedom. So I'm going to add to my main idea sentence. The main idea is liberty is an important value that gives Americans freedom. And I'm putting that main idea in the chat as well. Liberty is an important value that gives Americans freedom. And again, I used my title to determine my main idea, and I used words that I repeated over and over and over again and put that in my main idea as well. I also noticed that inside of the text, it's talking about the United States. It was talking about how we were formed. It was talking about the documents that we have. It was talking about what we can do as Americans in our country. So that word America is also important because that's where this value is given or important. Okay. You today are going to highlight, and let's choose a different color when you are highlighting. You're going to highlight supporting details. So today you are going to find 3. Go ahead and put a 3 by that supporting detail sentence. Inside of this text here, you will highlight 3 supporting details that prove the main idea is liberty is an important value that gives Americans freedom. What freedoms do Americans have? Why is that liberty important? Okay, so you're going to find 3 supports for that. On slide 3, you are going to type 2 questions. You're going to make a quiz. So you will come up with a question and you will answer your question. If you feel stuck on that, remember you have an example from Mr. Kenny right here in the instructional slides. So you have 2 jobs. You're going to highlight 3 supporting details for the main idea. You are going to write and answer 2 questions about the text. What questions can I answer about your assignment? Okay. Alrighty. Before I let you go, I want to take some time to go over our schedule. So let me stop the recording because people of YouTube, you don't need our schedule.